Hey, good afternoon, Heroic Fatherhood, and thanks for showing up on a Friday afternoon. Who would have thunk that it'd be a Friday afternoon that we could be here? This is another in the ongoing series of Dads Making a Difference, where we really shine a spotlight on dad bloggers and the message that they're bringing and the choices that they made, the journey they made about sharing their experience as dads and their willingness to bring it out in the world and what inspired it and what they've taken away from really living a public life. I'm super excited this evening for him, this afternoon for us. I get to invite to the camera left is Christopher McGuire from Out
Hello.
of Depth Dad. Hey, Christopher.
Hey, how you doing? It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you here. And I thank you. Like, the first thing we have to do for Christopher is thank him so much for being willing to be here as late as he is as a dad. Christopher, what time is it where you are?
So we're just 1 minute past 10 now. So the family's in bed, and it's good. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting back to my old ways of staying up past 9 p.m. with 18 months. So that's great. Perfect. I'll be up throughout the night anyway. So
yeah, we were sharing early. Christopher and I were sharing earlier about the joys of going to bed early, and I'm lucky if I can make it to 10 o'clock these days.
It's an absolute joy. I begin to realize that all of the things that were punishments when I was a kid are now the things that I want in my life. Going to bed, being told to sit in my room, being quiet, go read a book, all those things. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'd gladly sit in my room, read a book, and then fall asleep. Brilliant. That's what I'm looking for.
Absolutely. That's something we get to look forward to in the future. So you're in GMT time. You're in the UK. Where are you in the UK?
I'm just outside Exeter, which is in Devon, so in the southwest of the UK. So on the coast, about 5 minutes away from the beach. It's a lovely part of the country. I used to live in London, and I'm originally from Manchester, which is in the northwest of England. So yeah, it's a nice place. We've been here a few years now.
Oh, excellent. Now, well, family guy, right? Dad blogger. Tell us about your family.
Okay, so I've been with my partner Mary for just over 7 years now, and we have an 18-month-old. It's just 18-month-old son called Sam, and yeah, so I am the main weekday carer for Sam. So he's in nursery or daycare 2 days a week, and then the rest of the time he's staying at home with me, making me a SAHD. I'm never sure how to say that. Is it SAHD? Anyway, so yeah, that's what I'm doing these days.
Yeah.
So,
if you're not careful, it becomes sad, and then people have to go, well, don't, like, if there's treatment for it, they have medication for it. There are support groups, right? And then you have to go back and explain a whole lot.
I'll go and Google it later, but yeah, that sounds good.
So you're a stay-at-home dad, as a majority of the. Is that That's something that you had planned?
No. Well, it is in terms of from the point where we decided to try for a child. That was the plan. But up until my move to Devon, I've been working quite full on as a children's television producer. So I worked for companies like Disney and Nickelodeon and the BBC, and it was very much a career, very driven, very ambitious, that type of thing. And then just decided that it was just too much. The work-life balance was so totally skewed. We decided we wanted kids, moved down here, and I started going freelance writing, and it just came about that way that it became obvious after a while. My partner Mary has a proper job, inverted commas, and so because I'm a writer, that would be the obvious way to divide our time, and it's really worked for us.
Oh, nice. So you went from like being a children's TV, like the first thing you grab out of, is he worked with children's TV producer, but that doesn't mean you were working with children. That's a big career job. That's no small thing. And
no.
Well, tell us about what's that transition been like?
It has been quite substantial. I mean, the job itself is very pressurized. A lot of kind of turning things around quickly, reacting. So I would direct and produce and write. I'd be in charge of a gallery, telling people what to do. I'd usually have a queue of people by my desk with questions, and just shouting kind of orders in a as polite a way as possible, and going from that to often I'm kind of the only dad in the park pushing a pram around, and kind of talking to my 18-month son, kind of as we go around the supermarket, talking about peas or whatever it is. It is a extreme difference. I often say to him, there used to be people who really valued my opinion, and now we're just making fart sounds at each other. And that's fine. But no, I love it. But it is it's a shift. I can't.
Well, not only did you make the shift from television producer to stay-at-home dad, but wasn't that also about the same time you moved to the coast?
Yeah. So it was about. So basically, I'd say that I spent about a year, just over a year in London working as a freelance writer. And I was still working often in children's TV, but then often writing for advertising. And then the move to the coast happened, and then started writing. I still write for advertising, but started writing for newspapers, magazines, that type of thing. So, and then the baby came along. I remember having a coffee with one of my editors, discussing the content for. I had a column for a magazine which would just be about my life, and I told her that we were pregnant, and she was just like, "Oh, this is brilliant content." And that moment where I realised that that people would be interested hearing about the experience. It first went into, as I say, into magazines, and then the blog came after that.
So it was actually, it sounds like an inspiration outside of you to start your story about being a father.
Yeah, I found that kind of the pieces that I was writing started to take a kind of drift towards my experience more and more frequently, and then someone just said to me, "Why aren't you blogging about this?" And I didn't have a good answer. And the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to share my experience, because I do feel my experience is quite unique with other people. Hopefully just to kind of open a few eyes to how families are working here in the UK and as around the world in the 21st century, how things have changed. And it's been an interesting process. Learning about how people react to that, and learning a bit about myself as well.
Right. Yeah, it bears saying. It bears saying that, like, for people who are bloggers in the dad community and are consistently blogging, it seems like this normal thing, both sharing your story or even being a stay-at-home dad. But outside of the bubble in which we participate, it is still the exception to the rule. It is still the exception to the rule. What kind of response have you gotten since you started writing articles and starting your blog Out of Depth Dad?
I've had some really positive responses through the blog and through the articles. Kind of people often tell me that they've never really thought about the way it must feel for a dad to be a stay-at-home dad, and for how that works in this kind of in the new gender politics of our world. And I think that's been really positive. I've also had a lot of negative stuff just in my kind of day-to-day life out as a stay-at-home dad with a kid in the pram. Kind of people aren't necessarily up to speed with what that role is and feel a little not really sure how to take it, really. And so I think the more that we can get out there that this is a role that's happening as a result of the way that our society works these days, then kind of hopefully that transition will be easier for others.
Do you think, I'm curious, do you think that kind of response, that when you're out and about, excuse me, do you feel like it's intentional or it is thoughtless? Like they don't put any thought into it and it's more of a knee jerk, or maybe something else?
I think the majority of it will be knee jerk, will be the kind of, people will say, kind of where's his mum? And, you know, kind of, I wouldn't dream of going up to a woman in the street with a pram and saying, where's his father? Well, it's none of my business. And they'd be like, oh, are you looking after him while his mum's, you know, doing something like having a haircut or something, you know? And it's like, no, I'm not babysitting, I'm parenting. There's a distinct difference between the two. So yeah, I feel that type of thing. I don't think people mean to be offensive,
right?
But they often are. And I'm sure there are elements of my life where I've said the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time and done similar things without thinking. I think there is additionally perhaps a layer of people who are actually offended by the way that gender roles are being assigned these days, you know, in terms of man jobs and woman jobs. I have had experiences where, you know, kind of I'd be in a cafe with my son, just kind of, you know, kind of feeding him or whatever, and being tutted at, you know, kind of what is this man doing? Why isn't he at work? You know, that kind of, it's all gone wrong. This would be so much better if a woman was doing it. I've had a couple of actual kind of almost confrontational experiences about that, and it's just like, well, you know, kind of, you really need to calm down. So yeah, it's an interesting one.
It seems like, you know, like I think about that, and I think about the gender role reversal. Like if we were talking 20 years ago, you know, stopping, you know, you wouldn't talk about, you know, like stopping a woman on the street saying, "Where's your husband?" Yeah. That might, I don't know, depending on where you are, you know, in the 50s, in the 40s, and where were you during the war, or where were you during, why, you know, like I think about soldiers who for whatever reason, or people who were part of a war effort during World War II, or didn't fight because they took on other roles. And the question that they'd be asked is, why aren't you joining the military? Why aren't you out fighting? You know, it seems like people get blinders on to to gender roles, like, and it's the discomfort. It's like there's this not knowing, and in the not knowing, there's real discomfort in that.
Yeah, I think that people are that they can't put you in a box, and so they don't really understand how to deal with you. And then there's also this kind of idea that I'm doing it somehow either to slack off working or for an easier life, or maybe I'm just kind of, you know, I'm just getting welfare, or, you know, that kind of, it's this idea that, you know, kind of you're trying to beat the system somehow. And the truth couldn't be simpler. We sat down, we decided that we wanted to try for a child. We looked at our salaries. My partner's is significantly more than mine. I've gone from working as a full-time producer to working as a freelance writer. The obvious conclusion was, why wouldn't we stay with the person having the larger salary as the person who works full-time, and the person with the smaller salary taking on this role because I was more flexible? I mean, it's as simple as that. But at the same time, I don't want to be the person getting out a PowerPoint presentation in the middle of the street and explaining to people the thought process behind me pushing a tram. You know, kind of allow me to have the ability to have thought it through as an adult and come at it from the best of motivations. I think that's the elements that we need to get through, mainly to an older generation.
Yeah. And you know, this is it's funny, right? Like, it's not your job. It's not your job to explain it to anybody else, nor do you need to.
No.
And, you know, that it's not it's not unequivalent to it is and it isn't to an interview I saw with an African-American on TV who said, it's not my job to explain race relations to white people who want to know race relations in the United States. It's not my job. I'm not the indicative black person.
Yeah.
You need to figure it out for yourself, and just leave me to live my life the best I know how.
Exactly. And giving other people the chance to just assume the best of them. You know, assume that they're doing it for the best of reasons, that they're in their way, they're kind of fighting their own battle, they're going forward, trying to do the best for the people around them, and don't feel that because you've walked past them and you've got a snapshot that suddenly you know everything about them and you can wade in on it. It amazes me, the presumption of it. At the same time, you know, kind of, it's not my job to explain the world to people, but then the more people there are like me in this role, the easier the process will be. So, it's a double-edged sword, really.
Right. When there are, in your community, when there are a half dozen stay-at-home dads as opposed to one, when there
Exactly.
are, we see this sprouting of dads groups in the United States, mostly in larger urban areas, where dads are getting together who are committed parents and want to get together and talk about kids and what it's like to be a parent. And go on play dates and go to playgrounds as a group because they felt uncomfortable. They're like just so tired of going to the playground and getting the eyeball as the weird guy with the kids.
Yeah.
Like there's, and they were exhausted just having to go have that experience.
Yeah, I think that sounds like such a good movement to be encouraging. I mean, I don't think the idea of kind of fathers groups here in the UK, I don't think is as established. But I think that just kind of getting that thought process in people's heads, that it's just a little bit of logic that, kind of a child cannot be with its mother all the time. Children will want to go to a play park.
Right.
Who's going to take, kind of 51% of the population of women, 49% are going to get involved at some point. That there's no agenda. All you have is a child who wants to go on some swings and a slide. Kind of, it's not a complex argument to get your head around, but you do. I find, I'll go to the play park and I'll be playing with Sam, and even if I just say hello to the other mothers, they'll be like, okay, hello, all right. I've obviously crossed a line here, and this kind of tension, and the tension really frustrates me because it's not like I'm coming along to the play park. I'm not there to try and get a date. There's a very large symbol of my current relationship and the relationship I'm intending to have for the rest of my life there in the child I'm playing there with.
Right.
Kind of, it's I might as well be wearing a T-shirt that says "I'm taken." Kind of. So what's the tension about?
Yeah. I'm taken.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And yet, if we were going to go to the play park 20 years ago, whether it was in the US and I'm guessing in the UK, you'd see no men.
Yeah, that's true.
30 years and 40 years ago, you would definitely see no men, and men would be openly ridiculed for choosing to be involved in their children's lives. It would not be seen as something that's positive. And it's the benefit that we can do it, be involved in our kids' lives. And it is the cost is that being on the front edge, right, of like imagine a rolling ball, being on the front edge of it means that it is that thing that people just don't recognize, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, I haven't seen this before. It's different. It makes me wonder what's going on, like, because I don't see this normally. Is this, and it's our brains, and they just make up stories about stuff.
Yeah, it just strikes me that kind of what we need to do as a society in the UK and as societies in general is, kind of we are at a time where we're talking about gender politics a lot. The Weinstein aftermath has been big here, just as in the way it was and is in the US. And we've had a lot with our politicians and kind of that type of thing. And people need to start to think about how childcare is balanced. One of the things that really struck me after Sam was born, and it hadn't occurred to me up until that point, was that if I'm not with Sam, then my partner is. If my partner's not with him, I am. So there is a sense of it's a seesaw, or you're both with him. Kind of that's how childcare works. So if we're in an environment where we actively want, and what I do want is for gender equality, for women to be pursuing careers, then where are these children going to go? Kind of what do they think is going to happen there? They're either going to daycare, which is great, but not everybody can afford that, or someone has to look after them. Right. And so kind of people need to think to themselves, oh yeah, well, I see career women now. That means that somewhere there must be a man fulfilling what used to be a woman's role, inverted commas. And that's great. That's life. That's how we're all progressing. And, kind of, I just don't see why people just don't join up those dots in their heads. Kind of, my partner has a great career, and I support her in that. And I'm proud as hell of her, kind of the way that she works.
Right.
And obviously, kind of, if there's someone out there doing that, then there's going to be someone that has to look after the child. It's so obvious. And yeah, I just don't understand why people don't get that.
Well, I love where you're looking. And then there's the other layer, which is, assuming you have two working parents, the choice of daycare, right?
Yeah.
Like for some people, daycare works and that's fine. And they understand, like this is what works for us. We're career people. We choose to be career people. And part of the process of that is that someone needs to take care of our kids who aren't when we're not. And for some people that works great. And for others who say, no, actually that doesn't work. That actually doesn't work for us because we would like to be a hands-on all the time parenting role model for our kids. We'd like to spend that time with them. And then there's the choice, right? The choice as parents, like maybe there's one parent who says, boy, I want to be the one who stays home. I want to be the one who's there. I want to be the one who's a part of the day-to-day process. And then maybe the other, or maybe it's like what you and your partner did, which was we based it on like what made most economic sense.
And, I'm the last person in the world to kind of, I think that since Sam's been born and I've figured out how tough parenting is, I'm never going to judge another parent, whatever works for them. And, kind of as and when I can see perhaps Sam taking up maybe another day of daycare during the week. But we did the maths, and I don't know how this works out in the States, but essentially, if I went full time, I'd essentially be paying for daycare. That would, so we'd either go full time and I'm not at home and someone else looks after him, or yes. I am at home, we don't have that income, but we're not spending it on daycare. That was pretty much our equation. So we decided we'd go for the medium option, which was I'd work a couple of days a week and the rest of the time, I'd be with him. And so, if daycare was cheaper, then we may be using it more frequently. I don't know, but there is another part of me that wants him, especially in his formative years, to have as much contact with one of his parents as possible during the day. And so we decided that would be the process we'd go through. It's not easy. There aren't simple solutions.
Right. Well, and I love what you were saying there. And it's not uncommon in the US either. It's like the moment you take daycare or a nanny, full-time nanny into account, that's a full-time salary for one person.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so from my point of view, the decision is the one that your partner must make, but this is the one that worked for us.
Yeah. So what's been your experience with Out of Depth Dad? I'm going to make sure I put it up on the screen for people to see. What's your experience of, blogging about being a dad, and how do you feel like that's shifted you as a parent or as a partner or as a human being?
I think it's changed me in all of the above, really. I think that especially when a child arrives, and kind of that first 6 months, especially, you're on adrenaline. You're just getting through. Kind of it's a race. Just keep on going. It'll be fine. Maybe we can think about sleep tomorrow. That type of thing. And it gave me the excuse to stop and think and express. Not expressing in the same way as mothers do, but in a different form of expressing. So it was great in as much as I just stopped. I could actually say, I'm experiencing these thoughts, these emotions, kind of there's part of my head that's being rewired at the moment, and let me talk about that, because I hadn't heard many people talking about these experiences. I felt that a lot of the kind of the wisdom, inverted commas, that I was receiving, whether that being from books or from other people or through the internet, was from people essentially beyond the finish line. They'd done it and they were looking back, and they were going, you should do this, that, and the other, and all of that is perfectly valid, but it didn't ring true to me because I wanted someone that was running the race next to me, that understood that you felt like you were about to fall over at any point and you were a bit scared. And I didn't find anyone who felt that way, who, kind of, the best way I can describe it is I'm a huge fan of Indiana Jones films.
Oh, we have something else in common.
Well, kind of, they were made here in the UK, and well, I love them. And one of the things I love about Indiana Jones is he's always in over his depth. He never looks like he's got it under control.
Right.
He's always rescuing things just on the point where everything is going to turn to crap. Kind of, he hasn't thought about it. He's making it up as he goes along. And that, to me, makes him a massively attractive character as a film fan, because you're like, that's like me. I don't have a 10-year plan. I don't know what I'm having for lunch, kind of. And so I think for me, I began to think, well, kind of, there must be other people equally frustrated as I am who are thinking, look, this child is looking up to me as the one who's going to solve everything. I don't know what I'm doing, kind of fake it till you make it. But if I am going to have to do that, then I'm going to write about the process, because, kind of, hopefully down the line, someone else might read it and go, oh, they were as terrified as I am now. And there's something empowering about that.
Oh, that's so great. That's so great. No, I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan as well. And, there's so many great schools of thought on making it up as you go along. Stop worrying about what's going to happen in the future. Just do what works for you right now. Know that, trust that it's all going to work out, because it always does. Trust that it's going to work out.
No, exactly. I think that kind of, one of the things that I kept saying to myself is that, people have been doing this parenting thing for as long back as anyone can remember. Kind of, some of the best people I've ever met have been parents. Some of the worst people I've ever met have been parents. Kind of, and so if I can strike the balance somewhere between those two, then kind of, it can't be that bad a job. And it's a bit like driving. Kind of, when you learn to drive, my instructor kept saying, just have a look at some of the idiots behind the wheel. If they can do it, then you can. And that's kind of my mentality with Out of Depth Dad. If I can do it, then you certainly can.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it sounds like you're fighting the good fight, my friend. And absolutely. And this is why we all should be following you. This is the important part. So, so Christopher, you blog at outofdepthdad.wordpress.com.
That's right. Yes.
Website. And is there some place you can point folks who are local to you to see you in print?
There are several places that kind of that use me at different times. I write regularly for a magazine called Country Child magazine. I'm just about to start writing a new column for the Eastern Daily Press. I was at the Western Morning News for a long time, but I'm not anymore. One of the sad stories about local newspapers not having the budgets they once did, but I'm all over the place, really. I pop up quite a bit on Huffington Post and places like that. So.
Well, it sounds like you're sharing a great story. I really appreciate you taking this time at this late hour, because dads need sleep. Just so we're clear, dads need sleep. Everybody should go check out your work. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us today.
No, thank you.
And
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Charlie.
Absolutely. And this is it for the end of the week for Heroic Fatherhood in the Dads Making a Difference series. We'll be back with a whole new slew of interviews next week. And a big thank once again to Christopher McGuire from Out of Depth Dad, a blogger who's moved on to living in Devon in the UK from a London life. Excellent. Christopher, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Cheers.